him. You know, we used to have two emperors of the Roman Empire. One used to check on the eastern side of the empire, and one on the western side of the empire, because the Romans were controlling the world then. They were the superpower which was ruling the world at that time. So in 313, they had something called an Edict of Milan. Constantine used to rule the Western Roman Empire, and Licinius used to rule the Balkans Empire, which was on the east. They had an agreement in which they said that they would treat Christians benevolently within the Roman Empire. So here we get a change of mind. 313, Edict of Milan, Christians were now not to be assassinated or persecuted. They signed an agreement, both emperors. And then in the year 325, there was a very important turning during Constantine's time. They did what? What did they do? We first got the Ecumenical Council. In AD 325, it's called the Council of Nicaea. Constantine called all the bishops within the Roman Empire, the bishops, and they came with their assistants. Each bishop came with 5 priests and an elder. And so we had a total of 1,800 bishops who attended. 1,000 from the Eastern Empire, 800 from the Western Empire. And this marked a very important turning, because the bishops agreed on a number of key things. Number one, they agreed that Jesus Christ was the Son of God during that time. Among the other things they agreed on, you can read this, you can browse this in the internet. The Council of Nicaea. Nicaea, the spelling is N-I-A-C-A. Sorry, let me repeat. N-I-C-A-E-A. The Council of Nicaea in AD 325. You'll get the list of what they agreed on with the bishops. Remember, prophecy is just being fulfilled in bits. So they also came with something called the Nicene Creed. N-I-C-E-N-E. The Nicene Creed. You know creeds? Creed are statements they have to repeat over and over again. Statements of faith. So they came with the Nicene Creed. It would be good for you people to find out what was it in this Nicene Creed. Now life went on, and the bishops are becoming more powerful, because during this time, this man also changed he had changed his capital from Rome to a place called Constantinople. Constantinople, which means the city of Constantine, is in the current day capital city of Turkey, Istanbul. So he moved his capital city. And that was a very important thing in the history and in the prophecy, because Rome remained for the bishops to control. So life went on, and a fast forward, around 300 AD to around 1500 AD is the period in our history which is called the medieval church. The medieval church. Those were the Middle years, in other words, from around 300 AD to 1500 AD. These times are called the medieval church, when the papacy really gained strength. Okay, so fast forward, we are now in the year 538 AD. 538 AD is a very special time in our prophecies, because this period of time is found in the book of Daniel and in the book of Revelation. 538 AD, all of us know, is the start of the Dark Ages. The start of the Dark Ages. They began in 538 AD. So briefly, what is it that took place in 538 AD? This should be our interest at this time. What is it that triggered? And why is it called the start of the Dark Ages? So very quickly, let's see. Who was the emperor then? The emperor then was called Justinian. Justinian. And Justinian made some great changes which impacted on the Christian church at that time. Remember, all this time, up to 325 AD, only a few things have been introduced by Constantine. Constantine introduced a few things. One of them is that he declared that Sunday work should stop and everybody should go and worship. That is when he pretended to be converted. When he converted and he came to Christianity, he changed. He wrote a law which said that now on Sunday, people could go and worship and they could stop working, which tells you that until Constantine came to power, people knew the true Sabbath was Saturday. That one, there was no debate on that. So on Sundays, people could work. But when he signed something and he said that on Sunday, people should stop their work so that they should honor the sun god, that was his intention, because he was a pagan. You know, Romans were pagans. And the biggest war, the reason why they persecuted Christians in those years, from Nero's time to when we have Constantine coming in and his bishops, is because the Romans were having many gods. They had many gods. They were worshiping many gods. Actually, they had a number of gods. They had 12 gods who they really respected, but they also added other gods from other communities. The Greek gods, they also added. And the most powerful god they had, these Romans, was Jupiter. The most powerful god was Jupiter. And so they were persecuting Christians because Christians were monotheistic. Christians were worshiping one God, and they insisted that there's only one God. But for the Romans, who were pagans, they had many gods. And that's why when Constantine is insisting that they should stop work on Sunday and also respect the sun god, confusion now started coming there. When Constantine came in, is when he came in also with pagan rites, and pagan worship entered the true worship, which was there. So now in 538 AD, Emperor Justinian is in authority, and a number of changes take place, which I want you now to listen to. Now, one of them is that what remained of the Roman Empire was handed over to the church and papal functions. Take note of that. That was the beginning of the Dark Ages. What remained of the Roman Empire was now handed over to the church, the Roman Catholic Church, and the papal function. Now, the other thing he did, this Justinian, he upheld the supremacy of the papacy. He really lifted them up above any other denomination. And then he also called a council, which was called Council of Orleans. And the Council of Orleans in 538 AD took some actions which really injured the Christian church that time. What was the first action? The first action is that he listed what to be done on Sunday. He even added things which Constantine had prohibited. So things like travel. Constantine had said you cannot travel on on Sunday, sorry. But Justinian said you can travel. And then he prohibited travel on Sunday. He prohibited the preparation of food and cleaning of the house on Sundays. These things, Constantine had talked about them. Now, Justinian allowed them to be done. Constantine had banned them in order to keep Sunday holy. But now, Justinian made people free. they could do these things on Sunday. He also continued, and he even called other meetings. But among the greatest things which he did, Justinian, is that he instituted a seventh-day Sabbath prosecution. Class members, take note of that. They really changed, which now made it a dark, and the Dark Ages began, was that he instituted a seventh-day Sabbath persecution. Anybody who would worship on the seventh day, which is Saturday, would then be persecuted. And that's where now we get the beginning of the Dark Ages. I want us to go to the book of Daniel, briefly, the book of Daniel. Let's see the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel, chapter 7. The book of Daniel, chapter 7. And the Lord will surely not do anything without first talking to his servant. And surely he did with his servant. Okay, the book of Daniel, chapter 7. We get the prophecy of 538 AD, and we see in verse 20. Let's read. Someone to read this for us. Someone to read verse 20.
So chapter 7.
Yes, chapter 7, verse 20.
I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head and about the other horn that came up, before which 3 of them fell. The horn that looked more imposing than the others and had eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully. You may
Pardon,
continue.
just go on.
As I watched, this horn was waging war against the holy people and defeating them, until the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in favor of the holy people of the Most High, and the time came when they possessed the kingdom.
So you see, these are twofold prophecy. But this little horn came up from where we had 10 horns. Now the 10 horns, we all know, are the 10 European superpowers which were there then. But out of them, in other words, Italy was one of them. Now out of Italy came another horn, which would persecute God's people. And so you see, we had the Romans. And out of the Romans, there was papacy, again, just within Italy. And this small horn did a lot of things. As you can see, verse 24. Verse 24 says what?
It says that the 10 horns are the 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will arise, different from the earlier ones. He will subdue 3 kings.
Yes.
He will speak
And
against the Most High and oppress his holy people and try to change the set times and law. The holy people will be delivered into his hands for a time, times, and half a time.
Yes, very good. That's where we get the Dark Ages beginning in the book of Daniel. He will persecute the saints for what? A time, and times, and half a time. Get that? A time, and times, and half a time. Now in prophecy, we have a year for a day. A year for a day. And if you want to understand this, you just jump to Revelation chapter 12 because they are connected prophecies. What Daniel was shown, when you come, you get that he was being told that these prophecies are not to happen immediately. They will happen later. And so that later, God talks to another prophet again, so that we know the time has come. So Revelation chapter 12 talks about the same thing. Remember, I'm telling you that 538 AD was the onset. That little horn will be given power to persecute the saints. But now, I want you to see Revelation chapter 12. Are we there? Okay, are we there? Verse 13. Revelation 12, verse 13.
From when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child.
That is the church, which is worshiping the true Son. Okay, go on.
But the two wings of the great eagle were given to the woman, so she could fly into the wilderness to her place, where she was nourished for a time and times and half a time from the presence of the serpent.
Yes, from the presence of the serpent. Go on. What did the serpent do?
And the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman, so that he might cause her to be swept away with the flood.
Okay, but the earth?
But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river which the dragon poured out of his mouth.
Verse 17.
So the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her children, who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus.
Yes, so now you can understand. This is a long prophecy. In the book of Revelation, it goes beyond the 1,260 years. Because it talks that, verse 17, and the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring. Which means, who are those? The remnant who remained after the 1,260 years. So, Master Guides, the beginning of the Dark Ages was 538 AD. And Emperor Justinian gave the onset of what would happen for the next 1,260 years. For the next 1,260 years, so much happened. But the church ran into the wilderness at the place where God had prepared for it. Daniel is saying the same. John the Revelator is saying the same. And it's on this where we are. From 538 AD, the church was seriously persecuted up to the year 1798. Can you minus 1798 minus 538? How many years are those?
1,260.
Yes. That is what the Bible is calling a time, times, and half a time. For those number of years, the church was persecuted. And the church was also hidden at a place where God had made for it. Now, the story is long, but within these 1,260 years, so much happened. So much happened within this time. And it's important for us as master guides to know what was happening during these times. When persecution began, I believe you're taking your notes well, Emperor Justinian set it. And the main thing that he targeted were the true worshippers who are worshiping on the seventh day Sabbath. They faced persecution, serious persecution. Actually, they hid. And we are told up to 300 AD, before Emperor Constantine came, together with his co-emperor Licinius, we are told the only religion, Christian religion, which was there was called Pauline religion, from Paul, from the teachings of Paul. And so the main purpose for them fighting the Christians then, the Pauline Christians then, was because they believed in one God and they worshipped on the true Sabbath, the seventh day Sabbath. Those two things made the Romans to start fighting them, because the Romans were worshiping their sun god on Sunday, and they had many gods, with Jupiter being the strongest god. So the problem here was the problem of true worshippers and pagan worshippers. What I'd like you to do as an assignment is please go into the internet, the first assignment, seek out the conversion of Constantine. Take your notes on how he was converted to come to Christianity. Number two, the second assignment, find out the changes he made to Christianity when he came in to the church. And I want you to discover, when he came into the church, he was never baptized, as people say. This guy was baptized on his deathbed. That's when he was baptized. And you see now the heresy which has come today to the Roman Catholic Church is that they can even baptize a dead body. You get a dead body being blessed, they sprinkle water on a dead body, they baptize a dead body. The other thing, you see, they baptize children. Children. You know, these are heresies. And so, there's something very interesting I want you to do. I want us now briefly, because I know you've heard, you've talked, you've, at least as church members, you've discussed the 1,260 years. So briefly, I want each of us to make a comment on what you've heard or what you know, which you think happened during the Dark Ages. And why are they called the Dark Ages? Let's start. That's a good starting point. Now, class members, why are they called the Dark Ages? If it's possible, everybody could tell us a point why you think they're called the Dark Ages. These 1,260 years, sorry. Why are they called the Dark Ages?
Because all the power was taken by the Roman Church, and the Roman Church was slowing down like science, arts, everything was under the
so all the Bibles were taken.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks. Another class member? Another class member? Why are they called the Dark Ages?
Yeah, I also think on my note, it says that the Dark Ages is a period of time between about 500 and 1000 CE, marked by frequent warfare and virtual disappointment of human life.
So many people died.
Yeah, it was ushered in by the fall of the Western Roman Empire in AD, when the last Western Emperor, that is the Rome, was deposed. Yeah,
that's exactly what we were saying. The last Roman emperor who handed over the empire to who? To the papal, the papacy. So that marks the Dark Ages, because now Rome was no longer powerful, but who was more powerful now? The church. The church. Okay, another class member. Why are they called dark ages? Because inside there, there's a lot which happened within those years. Why are they called dark ages? When you've denied people reading the Bible. So what are you teaching them now? What kind of teaching do you give when you've taken away the Bible? Hello, class members, am I clear? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yes.
I'm asking, when you take away the Bible from the people, what kind of teaching do you give them now?
Well, their own teaching.
Yeah, now you can teach them your own things. So there are dark ages because, number one, the Bible was banned, and the Bible is the light of the world. The Bible is the light of the world because in the Bible, we come to know what God is actually saying and what he wants for us. Now, there are a number of things which took place within this time, the 1,260 years. And I want you to take note of the following, please. Number one, there's a group of people who are called the Waldensians. Waldensians. At times, they are called the Waldenses. The Waldensians, the Waldenses. Who are these Waldensians? The Waldenses. Who are they? The Waldenses.
That's a group of people that were hiding in the mountains from the persecution, and they kept the scriptures, and they were they were under the fire from the Roman Church, so that's why they had to be hiding from the church.
Where were they? Where were they?
Well, they were in the mountains in Italy, in Switzerland, and they.
In one word, those mountains, there are many, but they have just a very short word. What is the name of all those mountains?
Alps.
Yes, they are called Alps. Okay, very interesting. The Waldensians, right in the center of persecution in Italy itself, where persecution was being conducted, God had his people. Amen?
Amen.
And that's why prophecy is telling us that in the dark ages, the church was hidden at a place where God had prepared for it. You will come to really appreciate how God had already, when he was creating the world, he had already prepared a place for the church. Amen? We will come to discover that and really thank the Lord for that. Now, number one, write down the Waldenses or the Waldensians. I want you to do your own research on the Waldensians or the Waldenses during your free time. There's even a book in the internet called The Waldenses, which talks about them, their leaders, how they suffered, and you can download it for free in the internet. Number two, something else also came in during the Dark Ages, something which was called the Inquisition. The Inquisition. Please write that also. The Inquisition, just the way I'm saying it. The Inquisition. I don't know. Is any of us acquainted with what the Inquisition was? The Inquisition. The Inquisition, the Roman Catholic Church, because for every blood they poured, that was a seed, and more Christians were being gotten. So they discovered Christianity was also spreading in the Dark Ages. So for they to put a stop, someone, I don't know, the devil ignited someone to come up with a society called the Society of Jesus, whose work was mainly, it was a military organization, organized as a military. Its main purpose was to kill any heretic. They were calling any Christian, anybody who was preaching the true doctrine, a heretic. So the devil inspired someone to come up with a society which was called the Society of Jesus, while in reality, their main purpose was to kill any heretic. And this movement came to form a way of torturing and killing Christians. And during this time, something called the Inquisition came up. So a question to the class, what was the name of this organization? It's there even today, and its main purpose is to kill heretics, people who are not teaching the doctrines of the church, the Roman Catholic Church. Now, what is the name of this organization? That's my question number one. Can somebody answer? Yes.
The Jesuits.
The
Jesuits.
Oh, you call it Jesuits?
Yes.
Okay, here we call it Jesuits. Okay.
Yes.
Sawa sawa. That's the name of the organization. Question number two. In which year was it formed? In which year was it formed? Somebody is answering. Which year? Which year? Okay, write that down. Write that down. In which year was it formed? Number two, who was the founder? Who started this movement? I'll give you the initials of the name, and then you'll complete the name. The name starts with I. I of L. Okay, now what is the name? What is the full name?
His name was, the last name was Loyola.
And the first one?
It was like
okay.
1500s or something like that.
1500s. Okay. The name was Ignatius of Loyola.
Oh, Ignatius, okay.
Now, this is a very interesting guy because he was given power by the papacy to do this one. And this thing started in which country? Which country was it set up, his headquarters? Was it Spain or France? Okay, list there also. List the country and the powers which he was given and how he organized his people. And then also, please, list the tools they used to torture Christians. List the tools they used to torture Christians. Because you'll discover some of the people who are tortured are people we really talk about when you talk about a certain group of people who came out during the Dark Ages. Now, the other group I want you to note who came up or who came out during the Dark Ages are the reformers, right there, the reformers. There are people who said, no way, no way. We cannot continue like this. We cannot continue like this. We have to speak out. We have to speak out. And as we studied during these 1,260 years, there's someone who was the first one to speak out. Someone was the first one to speak out. And is called the morning light of the morning light of, hello, class members. There's a group of people who came out to speak out. What are they called in one name?
Protestants.
Not really. They were called reformers.
Reformers.
Yes, reformers. Protestants is a name which came slightly later. They were called reformers. Within the Catholic Church itself, there are people. Remember, the true church members were hiding. They didn't even want to be known where they were. But within the Catholic Church itself, there are people who felt, no, this is not right. And they had started speaking out. And we had the first person who's called the morning star of the Reformation, who started speaking out. What was his name? I'm giving a clue. He was a university professor in England.
Martin Luther.
No,
Wycliffe.
no. The mornings of the Reformation. What's his name? Oh, you said Wycliffe.
Yes.
Yes,
Wycliffe,
John
yeah.
Wycliffe. Yes, John Wycliffe. He was a professor in which university?
Edinburgh,
No.
Oxford.
Yes. He was a professor at Oxford University. And he was the first to speak out. And was even the first to teach some people. There are some young people he convinced. Remember? Who was one of them? Who also became reformers? I'm just trying to salivate you into discovering that even within the church, there was no
John
peace.
Huss.
Yes, John Huss. There are people he taught at the university who he also managed to convince, and they started the Reformation movement. They reformed the church. They started to reform the church. So John Wycliffe is rightfully called the morning star of the Reformation. And so many things took place. My sister who said Martin Luther came many years later after John Wycliffe. Around what year is this when John Wycliffe was trying to reform the church? Which century? In the 14th century, in the 1300s. That's when John Wycliffe is trying to reform the church, in the 1300s. So you can see it was early, because Martin Luther comes in the 1500s, but John Wycliffe in the 1300s. Okay, so let's continue. I'm going systematically. I've started first by telling you research on the Waldensians. Then again, I'm coming to the reformers, the Reformation. I've also talked about the Inquisition, the tool used to torture the reformers and heretics. Now I'm also coming to another thing which is happening. During the Dark Ages, there's also another thing which is coming out. I want you to discover the Church of England. Just type there, the Church of England. There was a ruler of England, a king, who decided to break away from the Roman Catholic Church because he wanted to do something which the Roman Catholic Church would not allow him to do. So he broke away from the Roman Catholic Church, which was controlling Europeans and was also controlling the European kings. So I want you to take note. He was a king. His name started with the letter H, and he broke away. And he started his own church in England, of which he was the patron. And the church got a name. It was called the Church of England. I have a question. You research, what was his name?
John Huss.
And what did he,
John
what was the
Huss.
name of this king?
He was the
John
Henry
Huss?
VIII.
Yes, Madam, John Huss. John Huss was a reformer. But I'm talking about a king of England, who broke away from the church, the Roman Catholic Church, to start his own church, of which he became the sponsor. Something like the sponsor or the leader. Somebody has helped us, but just continue your research also. So Vitaly, you were saying, what is his name?
His name was Henry the VII or VIII. I believe it is VIII.
Okay, it was King Henry the Great. Now research more particulars about him and even what he wanted to do, which the Catholic Church would not allow him to do.
He
So
wanted
he
to
broke away.
divorce. Yes.
So today, what is the name of this church which he started? What is the name of that church today?
Anglican or Episcopal Church.
The name of the church is the Anglican Church. And up to date, who is the custodian of that church? Who is the leader of that church?
The Queen or King of the England.
And so today, who is the leader of that church?
King Charles III.
King Charles III. Correct. Now, we are listing things which are happening within the 1,260 years. The Church of England, also within that period, breaks away from the Roman Catholic Church. Study about that, how they came to break away and the reasons. And then, within the Church of England, again, we had two groups of people who broke away from the Church of England. There was a group of people who were called separatists. Just write that. Separatists, who wanted a separation from the Church of England. And also write another group called the Puritans. The Puritans. The Puritans, a group of people who are thinking the Anglican Church, the Church of England, was still carrying so much baggage from the Roman Catholic Church. So they wanted the church to be made pure. This church needed to be purified. Now, listen very carefully. These two groups, the separatists and the Puritans, broke away from the Church of England, citing that it was still doing things and carrying so many things, doing things as the Roman Catholic Church. So they broke away. And when they broke away, they were also being persecuted again. You know, this persecution during the Dark Ages, it is so interesting. It was not only the Roman Catholic Church who was persecuting, but also the Church of England. And so what happened to these Puritans and separatists? A group of them, after running away from England, they found solace in the Netherlands. That's where they went and they comforted themselves. They formed a group, and a group of them decided to run away from England, and they took a voyage, you know, a leap of faith. Now, this group that took a leap of faith took a ship, and they wanted to run away. And they used to hear stories from sailors that there was another land beyond, which you cannot even see. It is far away. And they took a ship in the leap of faith in the year 1620. Now, I want you to list in the things you are going to research on, just right there, the Mayflower. Mayflower, this is a ship. The ship they took. I've said two groups boarded the ship. Two groups boarded the ship. The ship, the vessel we use in the ocean to travel and in the sea. I've said which groups, two groups. Which groups boarded the ship? Hello, class members. Two groups. Comprised of which people?
The Puritans.
Separatists and the Puritans. Yes. People in the ship comprised these two groups, and they set out in the year 1620. From where? They set out from Europe, and they crossed the Atlantic Ocean. A leap of faith. They didn't know where they were going, but at least the sailors knew where people were going. And I want you to discover the Mayflower and its journey. The Mayflower and its journey when they crossed the leap of faith. Because when you talk about the Dark Ages, most of the time we only think about the Waldensians, how they suffered, but so much was taking place during the Dark Ages. Okay, these people went and arrived at a port. They landed at a port. They also had their leader or their pastor who prayed for them at the shore before they set off. Get his name. And they also had more pastors who remained, who did not travel. Get also what happened during their travel. And when they landed the other side, they called the name of the other port with the name of the port they left. What was the name? Plymouth. But they also called the land Newfoundland. Newfoundland. They thought they had found a new land, but they were shocked that there were people already living there. And they managed to get one of these young men, the Red Indians, who happened to know English. And they wondered who had taught him English. Anyway, the rest is history. You can Google, you can read about it. It is a very nice story. The point I want to bring here is this. These people went with a true message of purifying the church, and they set up a colony in what today we call the USA, the land, USA, the country that is. But they formed their own colony. They had their own government there. And the government was set up on a principle, a godly principle. And they said, in God we trust. In God we trust. I believe that's still the philosophy upon which the United States is based on. So, United States is a Protestant country. It's not a Catholic country. It was based on Protestantism. And in the spirit of prophecy, we are told America stands for Protestantism in the world, even today. Protestantism. So, I can see our time is really moving fast. During the Dark Ages, when these people settled in America and set up a colony within the Dark Ages, something happened. Still within the Dark Ages. God started showing signs of his second coming. And the first sign that God showed the whole earth was the Great Lisbon earthquake. The Great Lisbon earthquake, which happened in which year? Hello? This happened in which year?
Can you repeat what happened?
I'm saying God, within the Dark Ages, God also started sending great signs of his second coming.
Yes.
Great signs. And I'm saying the first great sign he showed was the Great Lisbon earthquake.
Yes.
And I'm asking, in which year did it happen?
1755.
In 1755.
Yeah.
And when you read your Bibles, the Bible is very clear. Jesus is saying, is mentioning that, and after this great distress, signs will be seen in the sun and the moon. And can we read? Can we read? Luke, the book of Luke, chapter 22. Signs have started to appear now in the sky of what Jesus Christ said. Okay. I want where now the signs of the second coming. Signs of the second coming.
Matthew 20.
Okay, Matthew 22, sorry. Matthew 22. Matthew 22. Now, I wanted to check what Christ was saying. Thanks, brother, for assisting. Okay. Is it really Matthew 22 or Matthew?
It's 24.
Matthew, let me get what I want. Okay. Matthew 24. Matthew 24. Matthew 24 and verse 29. Matthew 24 and verse 29. Matthew 24 and verse 29. Let's start with verse 14. Verse 14 was saying, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. So the message started, it was in all over the world. Then persecution came, but it was still going on. Now the message, because of the persecution, has reached Europe, Netherlands, and the message has traveled to America, to a continent where there was no message. And then in verse 29, the Bible says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the only next sign we'll be waiting for is the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. And then all the tribes of the earth will mourn. Now, brothers and sisters, these signs began with the shaking of the earthquake of Lisbon in 1755. And I can see our time is up. I know Wilson will be on my neck, but there's a set of signs which came in close proximity, because exactly 25 years later, that is now in the which year? 1780. What happened in 1780? We had the great stars fell. No, we had the great dark day.
Darkness, yeah.
Yeah, the great dark day. Exactly 25 years. That is 1780. And within a short time again, in 1833, what happened? The stars fell. Heaven was shaken, and the stars fell. What Christ was saying. Now, these three signs which happened, the earthquake, the dark day, and the stars falling, they are called in one word. Okay, they are called in one sentence or in one phrase. What are they called? Heralds of the second coming. Heralds of the second coming. Because they were heralding the second coming of Jesus Christ. So these three signs came, and those people who were closely watching and waiting picked it up very quickly, that these must be the signs of Christ's second coming. Anyway, all these things are happening. Some are happening within the period of the Dark Ages. The Great Lisbon earthquake and the falling of the stars, and the dark day. This happened within the period of the Dark Ages. And this is what the Bible is saying. Christ is saying immediately after what? That great tribulation. Then you'll see signs in the heavens. So those who are studying prophecies, the prophecies, discovered that surely Christ is about to return. From what he said, now Christ is about to return. Anyway, let me pause there for today. And I want to tell you this. There are videos I've sent. I wanted to send these videos to you, but they cannot come on WhatsApp. So I've directed Wilson that you download. I've told him where and how to download. We have a video which I want you to watch, which is talking about what I've talked about, what was happening in the Dark Ages. And when we come to the next class, we'll be discussing that video. I know we could have discussed much more, because I have much more to tell you, which is not even in the videos, but because of time, we have to stop here. Now, church heritage is a very, very interesting topic. I've always seen most master guys don't appreciate church heritage. But you can only know where we are going when we know where we've come from. True or false?
True.
When we can clearly see how God has been rescuing his church, is when we can appreciate where we are going. And we can appreciate that God has really been holding us in his wings carrying us in his wings at times. So, Wilson, please help the people to download episode 1 and 2 of the Keepers of the Flame videos. And please watch them, because the next class we are discussing the Dark Ages, and we want to discuss what was happening step by step, so that we have a true picture, so that we don't just talk of Dark Ages and assume they are dark. You know, they are dark. Nobody can know what was happening. They were not dark because people don't know what was happening. They were dark because the things which happened were so bad, so bad. So many people died, and there were so bad deaths, such that it was a dark time for the church. May God bless you. And over to you, Wilson.